Hi guys, welcome to another episode of Blade and Board. I'm Kate Marfione, and today we're going to make for you chicken and dumplings. I really hope you enjoy this experience with us, and let's get to it. Okay everyone, to get started on these chicken and dumplings, we're gonna have to go over a couple of things that you're gonna need. Of course, you need a whole chicken, gonna roast it for the dumplings. You're gonna need garlic, a white onion, and a yellow onion. You're gonna need a bunch of rosemary and thyme for the chicken. You're gonna need garlic, carrots and celery. You'll need chicken broth or chicken stock. You'll need poultry seasoning, salt, pepper, fresh parsley, all-purpose baking powder. You'll need flour, milk parted into a cup and in 1/3, and you'll need butter. To get started, we're gonna start to prepare our chicken. The first thing that you're gonna need to do is to cut up the garlic and your white onion. Okay everyone, now that you have your garlic, your onion, and your bunches of rosemary and thyme, what we're gonna do now is stuff the cavity. But before you stuff the cavity, you want to put oil and salt and pepper the inside and the outside of the chicken very well. We're also gonna use some of that poultry seasoning that I mentioned mixed in with the oil. I like to wear gloves before I mess with the raw chicken because you have to separate the skin from the body to be able to get the oil underneath to get onto the meat. This is about how much oil you will need. It's about 1/2 cup to 3/4 a cup, depending on the size of your chicken. This is a poultry seasoning. I just season it with my heart. If it doesn't change colors, it's probably not enough seasoning. And just a bit of salt and pepper to taste. Inside my salt is Himalayan pink salt. I highly suggest that, or Celtic salt when cooking. Just gonna get a little mix with my hand here. Here's our beautiful whole chicken. You're gonna start from the back and to the front. And just kind of separate the skin from the meat. Just to get a little bit of oil on your hands from stirring up that mixture, it helps out a lot. At this point, you're gonna wanna have your pan lined and have it sprayed down with some olive oil. I like to stand the chicken upright and just kind of pour it into the cavity and onto the top parts of the chicken. Make sure you get it all on the meat the best that you can. Having that skin on there helps protect your chicken from really getting dry. But if you only put it on the top, no flavor enters the meat. Whatever you have left, you pour it into the cavity. Kind of giving it a chicken massage in a sense. Whatever's left, just pour it over the top. Rub it in really well. And then lastly, you're gonna stuff all of these ingredients that you have, your rosemary and thyme, your onion, and your garlic inside of the cavity. If all of your onion doesn't fit inside the chicken, just leave it in the bottom of the pan. It still gives it a nice flavor help. Okay, and now you're gonna put that chicken in the oven at 350 for about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes until the juices run clear. You want the skin to be nice and crunchy. Try to squeeze the legs together to make sure all of those fixings don't fall out. And that's it. The next thing we're gonna do is we're gonna start cutting up some vegetables. Okay everyone, now that you have your chicken in the oven, we're gonna let it roast for an hour and 15 minutes, give or take. While that's roasting, the next thing you want to do is start working on the stock and the juices of your chicken and dumplings. This point, you're going to need a cup of yellow onion, a half a cup of celery, and a half a cup of carrots. You want these nice and diced. Okay, you're at this point, you have your onions diced up, your celery and your carrots. We're gonna get ready to saute these and add in our broth, our spices. You'll need butter, and this is when you're gonna need your flour and your baking powder. And your milk should be divided. You need a cup and you need 1/3 for this process. This recipe is very special to me. It's something that I learned how to make when I was, I believe, 16, 17 years old. We cleared off the whole table, floured the whole entire countertop, and rolled out a massive amount of dough for these chicken and dumplings. We didn't make just 1 pot or 2 pots. We made 3 entire pots of these chicken and dumplings for an event that we were doing with our friends and family. It's something that I make all the time. I used to make it almost once a month, all the way up until, I want to say, about 2-ish years ago. I cut back on how often I make it because it is a comfort food, and it's very comforting. It'll knock you out and make you really, really sleepy. So we're gonna get started on these and cook them up, and then we'll move on to the next step. We're gonna add in about 1/4 cup of butter to medium high heat of your pot. You want that nice and melted. Once you get that melted down, you're gonna add in all of your diced vegetables, your onion, your celery, and your carrots. And you wanna saute them until they're about halfway done, right before al dente. So you'll probably need to turn the heat to medium high. The next step that we're gonna do is we're gonna take our flour here. We're gonna sprinkle it over the top. You're essentially making a roux, but not really a roux. But you do want it to get kind of that consistency, and make sure you turn your temperature down just a little bit so it doesn't burn. And you're gonna do a little bit at a time. Once you get the flour in, you want to pour in your broth. Give it a good little stir. 1/8 of a teaspoon of salt. Around a tablespoon of poultry seasoning. 1.5 tablespoons. Ground thyme. and pepper. You want to bring this to a boil and then add in your milk and then let it simmer on low. We have everything in our pot, and you have your milk in. You're gonna leave the lid on, put it on low, and you're gonna get started on the dumplings. Okay, let's get to making these dumplings. You're gonna need 2 cups of all-purpose flour. You're gonna need 1 cup of milk. You're gonna need some very cold cubed butter. You're gonna need baking soda and salt. You need a little extra flour to go on top of your mat so everything doesn't stick. This part is my favorite part. It is messy, it's fun, you get to cut it up. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just fun. As long as you get the thickness correct, then it doesn't matter. Just enjoy it and have fun doing it. When you cut the butter into the flour, you can use 2 forks to cut in butter, or you can use a butter cutter. Makes life a little bit easier, but do it the old-fashioned way and use 2 forks. Gonna sprinkle in your baking powder, your salt. Give that a mix. Cut in the butter. And this takes a minute. You know, amongst chicken and dumplings, I feel like a lot of my favorite foods are Southern foods. Foods that kind of give you comfort and give you a little bit of nostalgic. You know, I grew up in the Carolinas, so most of the dishes that I know how to cook and love to cook are Southern comfort dishes. They're the ones that put meat on your bones, that's for sure, but they're always the ones that make you feel really good to make and to enjoy with other people. Growing up, my grandmother was a huge inspiration to me to have like family dinners once a week and on Sundays. She was always really good about making sure we all ate. If you left hungry, it was your own fault. She used to tell us it was a good time. My grandmother's favorite thing was like fried chicken. She used to make that quite often, but it's probably the best fried chicken I've ever had in my life. And it's something that I miss that she makes. I hope for my daughter, and then one day maybe grandkids, that there's a dish like this, like chicken and dumplings, or maybe even a sweet treat that I bake for them that they will remember me by. Because I just feel like that's a special thing, to have a type of food that you associate a loved one with. Well, let's get these dumplings going. Just keep on mixing and cutting that butter in until it gets nice and combined throughout the flour. And then we'll add in the rest. Okay, now that you have your butter cut into your flour, it should start to be sticking together and form little clumpy pieces inside of it. Next part we're gonna do is we're gonna slowly pour in that milk and mix it until it's all nice and well combined and start to form a dough ball. Now that you have a ball, nice little dough ball, if it feels a little too damp, that's okay. You can just add some flour. You're gonna sprinkle enough onto your mat so it doesn't stick. I like to press mine out, and if it feels too moist, that's when I add a little bit of flour and kind of fold it in. Then you're gonna roll it all out and then cut it into squares. Okay, we have our dough nice and rolled out. Just gonna cut it up into squares. You want them about at least an inch, inch and a half long. Kind of like, they're more like rectangles. And you're gonna get them cut up and then we'll get ready to put them into the mixture that you've made to get them cooked. Okay, now you have your dumplings cut up. This is about what they look like. I always make sure before I put them into a pile, I put a little bit of flour on top of them, so that way they don't completely stick together once you get them all cut up. They should not be pretty. They should be like this, but they should all be the same thickness. That's the only important part about the dumplings, is you don't want them in different thicknesses. But the different cut, funky cuts of them makes it more homey, in my opinion. So you're gonna get your pot of the sauce that you've had brewing over there. Make sure it's at a good temperature to start cooking these, and you're gonna start to boil them and watch them come together. And then next we're gonna get that chicken out and we're gonna break it up and get it into that pot. If your sauce appears to be a little too thick at this stage, you can add in a little bit of bone broth or milk to taste to help thin out that sauce a little bit. Our chicken and dumplings soup base is nice and simmery still. It was a little thick, so I added in just a little bit of that chicken bone broth to kind of thin it out a bit, because these dumplings have lots of flour on them. It's going to bring it right back to that same thickness. So you want it just barely bubbling. You put them in and consistently stir nice and slow until they're done all the way through. And then at that point, you'll pour in your 3rd cup of milk, and then we're going to add in the chicken and then heat it all the way through. Okay, our chicken's done. We're gonna take it out of the pan. It smells amazing. Put it over here. And there's 2 ways you can do it. If you have time to let it cool and then come back and cut it up, you can, or you can be impatient like me and just go to town and tear it apart with a fork. And once you get it all torn up, we're also gonna go back in and chop it up some, and then we're gonna add it into our soup. So tear up your chicken. All right guys, here's our shredded beautiful chicken. Now we're gonna chop it up to be a little bit smaller for our pot. This is pretty much the last step of my chicken and dumplings before we get to eat it. I just wanted to mention to you guys that this chicken and dumplings recipe is something you don't have to follow by heart. You can change it up, you can add peas, you can add other vegetables, corn, all kinds of stuff. But the best thing to do with it is that after you cook it and you have leftovers is you can turn it into chicken pot pie. It's probably my favorite thing to do with this. And then you can keep it in the freezer and cook it in the oven when you're ready. This is a good quick little chop, probably about this consistency. You could break it down a little bit more if needed. And that's pretty much it. Now we're gonna add it to our pot and give it a good stir and heat it throughout, and then we'll be ready to eat. All right guys, this looks great. I think I did a good job. Let's see how it tastes. That's delicious. That's really good. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and enjoyed making this dish with me. We'll see you next time on Blade and Board.